Hello, and welcome to the Sun Country Pilot Podcast. My name's Captain Tyler Lauer. I'm a member of the Communications Committee, and today we're sitting down with Captain John Ingalls. He's the chair of the Scheduling Committee. How are you today, John?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thanks for having me today.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sitting down and taking some time out of your, I'm sure, very busy day to have a conversation with me, answer some questions about what it is you do. So, to get us started, why don't you give me just a brief introduction of yourself, maybe some history within aviation or Sun Country Airlines, and then maybe what drove you to be a part of the scheduling committee?
Sure. I've been into aviation as long as I can remember, like most of us. I think the first movie I can remember seeing in theater was Independence Day, and watching Will Smith fight aliens in F-18s made me say, man, piloting is really, really cool. My father and uncles were GA pilots, non-professional, so we grew up with a family Cessna, so I learned to fly in that around my teenage years. Went to Embry-Riddle University in Daytona Beach, graduated the standard aviation degree, flight instructor for a very long time afterwards. I went to Compass Airlines, had a great time at Compass Airlines. Eventually, Compass Airlines announced the closure of the Minneapolis domicile, and for me, that was all she wrote with Compass, and I threw in my application to Sun Country and disappeared as quickly as I can. Been here since January 2nd of 2018. As for what got me onto the scheduling committee, I had never in my life done anything revolving ALPA before Sun Country. It just so happened that I was a brand new FO and I got junior assigned. I didn't understand how junior assignment worked at all. I had plans that evening. I was a little frustrated, so I called the then scheduling committee chair, Jay Scheffler. He had a great long talk with me. I started reading the contract and calling him with more questions. He introduced me to the other scheduling committee members at the time. That was Brian Lethard and Chris Erickson. And little by little, I started getting more involved with them. And here we are today, 4 or 5 years later.
Excellent. So, why don't you just give the pilot group kind of that top-down view, your 2-minute intro of the scheduling committee and what the committee does?
The scheduling committee is generally divided into, in my opinion, 5 subcommittees. We have the duty pilots. They're in with SOC, crew scheduling, travel, maintenance control, and they just kind of oversee the operation and give a pilot's opinion. They're not to be confused with supervisor of flying. They have no operational control. They're simply saying, from a pilot perspective, here's how this event is going to go, and we make recommendations that, yep, that's a good modification to a pairing, or perhaps you shouldn't do that. Crew schedulers do come to us more than they used to now, saying, hey, is what we're going to do legal to a pilot schedule? And we give them advice. Our understanding of the contract says, yes, that's legal, or our understanding of the contract says that is illegal. Additionally, we have the Pairing Review Committee. The Pairing Review Committee works with crew planning and crew pay. We sit down with them. We have the same copy of S3RUS, which is the system that generates our pairings. We work on building pairings with them. Contractually, the rules say we can compete with them and the cheapest solution wins. We found competing on cheapness is a race to the bottom, not to the top. So what we do is we review the company's pairings and we send our counter proposal pairings with them, and we just kind of negotiate back and forth and say, we like some of the things you're doing on your pairings, but here's some changes that we recommend you make. And really, our goal isn't to get them to use our pairings, it's to get the airline to say, yep, the ALPA suggestions are good and we should use them going forward. We currently have the line build committee. The line build committee takes the pairings once they're done and puts them onto the line. We've got 3 ALPA members involved in that. Those guys are building out your monthly bid package. They're putting in that bid package stat sheet that you see every month. Today is August 14th, and we are finishing that for the month of September right now. And as we transition to PBS, this will be the last time we ever do that. The newest part of the scheduling committee is the PBS committee. And as PBS starts to roll online, we have ALPA members that have been working behind the scenes to get that implemented. We're working on the admin function to make sure that the system works correctly. We're running the solutions. The mock bidding that we're doing currently has been fantastic and giving us a lot of real world experience with how to run PBS, and we're learning quite a bit with that. We're still trying to get it dialed in to make the best possible solutions we can that benefit the most of the pilot group while honoring seniority. And then the last thing that the scheduling committee does is, jointly with the safety committee, we manage the airline's fatigue programs, the fatigue review board and the fatigue review committee. The fatigue review board analyzes every fatigue call and says, was this operationally induced or not operationally induced? If it was operationally induced, you're pay protected for the trip, for the fatigue call. It was decided it was not due to the operation that you called in fatigue, then the pay is deducted from your sick bank. We are additionally involved in the fatigue review committee, and the fatigue review committee then takes all of the fatigue reports that were deemed operationally induced by the fatigue review board and says, root cause, how can we try to avoid this fatigue going forward? And that's the high level of what the scheduling committee does on a monthly basis.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. Let's kind of narrow it down here and just kind of hone in on you as the committee chair. So what's your day-to-day look like as the scheduling committee chair?
My day to day as the scheduling committee chair depends what part of the month we're on. The first through the, call it the 7, 8, 9, I'm generally heavily involved in monitoring the pairing build and working with the airline to make the best quality of life, less fatiguing pairings that we can. From about the 10th to the 15th, I'm involved in the bid package construction, making sure that the lines are built well, and we try to make so the bid package is built correctly. Once that's done, I'll spend a lot of time in the second half of the month reviewing fatigue reports, and walking in and out of SOC and scheduling. So what my day to day looks like very much depends on what part of the month we're on. For an example, today, if we ignore this podcast, from 8 a.m. to about noon, I'm in Building C working on building lines. I'm periodically walking over to have conversations with the chief pilot's office or SOC and crew schedulers, depending on what the darts look like. I'm monitoring all the darts. I'm generally a little bit busy to answer all of the darts. We have a lot of great committee members who can handle more darts than I can. But I'll look at the more complicated darts, or if a committee member calls me and says, hey, there was a potential contract violation or an issue with a dart, I can go over and have a conversation with the chief pilot or with the crew scheduler and try to quickly resolve it before it becomes a major issue.
Very good. So we kind of talked about the newest addition being the PBS committee. How's that transition from line building to PBS? What's that mean for the committee members? How does that look for the pilot group? Can you kind of give us just some information on this transition?
Well, the pairing build side stays the same with that. I just want to make it clear to all pilots out there that PBS has no impact in how we build our pairings. The pairings are still the pairings. They're still built by another program, S3RUS. So the quality of the pairings won't change. I've seen quite a bit of people saying under PBS, are we going to quote fix XYZ problem? To which the answer is always no. PBS is just a way it applies the pairings to your line. We don't build the lines anymore, so that saves us 2 or 3, 4 days of our lives. But now we're running PBS solutions, so we have about 4 days to run the solutions, so that equals the same amount of time. Additionally, we're working the PBS help desk and the bid resolution period. So I would say the workload goes up for the scheduling committee under PBS a fair amount. Now, right now, it used to take us a week to build a bid package. Now we can put one together in 2 days. So there's a lot of, the more you do it, the better you get at it. PBS is still new to us. We're spending a lot of time running PBS solutions. The expectation is the longer we do this, we can get these solutions pumped out much quicker, which will give us more time off and get the pilots their schedule sooner. But as everyone's seen in the mock bids, right now it's just we're taking our time and we're trying to do the best that we can. I'm not going to rush anything.
Sure. And something that I've seen and some questions from other pilots revolve around running those solutions. Can you maybe just give me some information or just an idea as to why we have to run several solutions to get kind of the best outcome for the pilots?
Yeah, and it's not several solutions. At the moment, it's several hundred solutions. So the way the system works is the company assigns us their KPI. KPI is a key performance index for those who haven't heard the term before. It's the benchmarks we need to meet in order to have a legal solution. The company gives us the average line value that we need to be plus or minus an hour from. They give us our max stack heights. They tell us how high up the seniority list we can unstack. Our goal is always to have the highest stack heights that we can, meaning we didn't force pilots to work a day we wanted, and we try to unstack as little as we can. The company then gives us the reserve target grid, and the reserve target grid at the moment is a challenge. So if we have a day with 0 open duty periods, they want, say, 20 reserves. If we have 10 open duty periods because there's 10 trips in open time on that day, they would want 30 reserves on that day. So we find it's challenging just to tell the system I want 10 more reserves on this day because it has to take it from somewhere else. And what we'll find when that happens is now we're down reserves on another day, and then you apply more reserves there, and now you're too many reserves on the day you want, not enough reserves elsewhere. And because many people are bidding their days off conditionally, saying, I need, we'll say the 4th of July off, for example. If you can't give that to me in pairings, make me a reservist with the 4th of July off. If I can't be a reservist with the 4th of July off, I'll go back to pairings. So every time we push on these open time stacks and move our reserves around, it changes who was a reservist, who was a line holder, changes the trips in open time, And we equate it to a bit of a game of whack-a-mole at the moment, or a balloon. If you can imagine a big balloon shaped like a dog or something, a animal balloon, you push in on something, the nose of the dog, and something pops out somewhere else on the balloon. So it's this very slow game of pushing gently here and pushing gently there to end up with this circular shape that you're going for in the end. As we get better at that, hopefully the process goes quicker. But right now, it's taking us about 100 runs to come up with something that's contractually compliant. And once we're able to find something contractually compliant, then there's a lot of debate about what's the best way to make it contractually compliant. We know that we need to shoot for an average line value, plus or minus an hour. Some ways I can get there: if a lot of pilots are bidding for the minimum credit window, I can change thresholds in minimum credit window to increase that. I can change the normal credit window threshold. I can restrict bidders inside all of the credit windows. There's a lot of buttons that you have to push to get to that compliance solution. And the unfortunate part about it, when no matter what action you take, you're making somebody's schedule a little bit better and somebody's schedule a little bit worse. If I restrict the number of pilots that I allow into the minimum credit window, that's great for the pilots that are in the minimum credit window, but the three people that we say, sorry, you can't be in it, it's terrible for them. So you hate doing that. You could allow more pilots in the min credit window by increasing the threshold of the min credit window. That's the number the system needs to achieve in order to build you a schedule. But now pilots who are trying to get that extra day off might need one more trip on their schedule because they needed to hit that threshold. So now, instead of just affecting 3 pilots that didn't get into the min credit window, I'm affecting every single pilot that's in the min credit window with one more day off. Or vice versa, the max credit window. Maybe I try to increase the number of increase the threshold in the maximum credit window because I'm trying to drive up my average line value to where I need it to be for contractual purposes. I can say, instead of having to hit 90 hours, you need to hit 95 hours to get in there. And maybe there's a few people who there's just not enough trips left over to get them into the max credit window, so they're unable to achieve it now. It's just, it's always a balancing game of trying to affect the fewest amount of pilots. And right now, the biggest impact I would say on PBS is on the reserve pilots. I'm sure they're feeling that a lot of unstacking is happening on their seniority and in the reserve ranks. And we're working on doing everything we can with the company to now minimize the unstacking that's going on with them as we've kind of figured out the line holders a little bit. Fundamentally, everyone's going to need to fly. The company does need their reserve coverage grids met, but we're still working with the company to try to equitably even this out a little bit so that no one feels like their seniority and their voice isn't being heard. We want every pilot to work, but we also want every pilot to get the schedule that they deserve to have.
Excellent. Well, as a reserve pilot, it's good to hear that, and I know that PBS coming online is very complicated, and I know
Mhm.
there's going to be tons of questions from pilots as we move forward and kind of wrap up today's podcast. If you were going to leave the pilot group with kind of one piece of advice or tidbit of information, what would you tell them?
Read the contract, and if you have questions, toss out darts. The amount of times I see people, whether it's under PBS bidding or in their day to day, leaving is on the table, so to speak, because they didn't know they were entitled to something, is quite high. There's always some reassignment that's of questionable legality. And when the pilot calls crew scheduling out on that while citing a contractual citation, there's a pull and pay protect under PBS when pilots are understanding the system and how it works better and what they're entitled to. They can bid much more efficiently. Know the tools that are available to you and how to use them. And if you're not confident, fill it out and ask. We're here to help. We're here to teach you how to use these things. We've got quite a bit of schedule flexibility at Sun Country Airlines if you know how to use it. So I just encourage everyone to learn the scheduling rules as best you can. There's a lot of them.
Awesome. Well, again, we are sitting down with Captain John Ingalls today. He's the chair of the scheduling department. John, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you. I really appreciate taking the time out of your busy day. For the rest of you, thank you for taking time out of your days to listen to our podcast. Follow us on social media. Again, it's the Sun Country Alpha Pilots podcast today. Check the MEC website for up-to-date information, and don't forget to file those darts. Until next time, fly safe and fly the contract.